Hey, I'm Gabriel Birnbaum. I'm the frontman of Wildermaker, and I'm going to talk to you about my gear. So this is my guitar. I have another one, but this is the only one I ever play or use for anything. It's a Harmony Rocket. It's from the early 60s. It's got these very excellent gold foil pickups that sound incredible, and I bought it. So I played a friend's Harmony. I didn't even own an electric guitar when I was first starting this band. I borrowed my friend Martin's Harmony and I loved it. And I was like, I'm gonna get one of those. So I looked on Craigslist and this guy was selling one, and then I went to a parking lot in the middle of the winter in Boston, and this middle-aged guy came and pulled this out with no case, and so I tried to play it in the cold and couldn't really tell if it was okay or not. And I bought it for $200 and I took it home and it actually sounds incredible, luckily for me. These were the Sears brand guitars, so if you went into Sears to buy your kid an electric guitar in 1962, you would get them this. Pretty sure it was Sears. So they're very cheap. They're also kind of cheaply made. The neck bends because there's no truss rod in it. So it's a very challenging guitar. The intonation is crazy, and it's almost like playing an acoustic guitar. The action is really difficult, and if you lower the action, then the top frets won't sound. And I wrote the last record we put out, Zion. All the songs are at capo 8, so I need all the frets to sound. So it's a labor of love to play this guitar, but it sounds beautiful, and I'm so attached to it. I've bought other guitars since I bought this, thinking something buttery and easy to play would fix it for me, but I just love this guitar. It's the guitar for me. I'm a difficult person, and it's a difficult guitar. We understand each other. So these are flat wound 11s. I never change them, and I don't play with a pick, so I never break strings, basically. It's very rare. I kind of like the slightly dead sound of them, and I like the thickness of the flat wounds. Yeah, and I think it has to do with I like sort of dark sounds in general. So this guitar is dark, and then playing with flats also increases that. Playing with a high gauge as well. Yeah, and the finger picking style also darkens it as opposed to playing with a pick, which is much sharper. I play with drop D a little bit, but because the intonation on this guitar is so weird, I actually don't like doing alternate tunings with it because it's really difficult to get it to stay after you've detuned it. And if you look here, you can actually see a bunch of blood from when I played a guitar solo one time and cut my finger open and didn't notice. It's a nice touch. It's really simple, just got a volume knob and a tone knob. I keep them both cranked all the way up, and I adjust the volume elsewhere because that gets the best sound. So this is an Ampeg Big M. It's from the early 60s, and it looks unusual because it's in a cabinet that some guy in, I think, Kentucky made, and we found it on tour a long time ago on Craigslist. I was on tour with my buddy Elio DeLuca, who runs a studio in Boston called The Soul Shop. He's a huge gearhead. He knows much more than I do, and he saw this thing and was like, "This is for you. You need this." So we bought it, and we put a new Weber speaker in it, and it sounds amazing. It's the perfect volume where you can push and get some crunch out of it, but you also have just a perfect, clean, warm tone. It sounds amazing, and it also has this really cool built-in tremolo where the tube actually glows hot. You can see it. It's just straight up tube tremolo. Yeah, and this has been my amp for 9 years, and it's pretty much the only one I play live. Yeah. This amp is really hot, so I actually keep the volume quite low. It's hard to read, but this is at a 2 for this room, which is fairly sizable for a indie rock venue. And then the tone, it looks like it's at 1, but it's actually cranked. It's a little busted. It's cranked all the way around, and that's mostly just because of my guitar, which is a Harmony Rocket, which is very low end heavy. So I crank the tone all the way up to balance it out with a little bit high end. It's still a really dark sound, but for me with my combo of gear, that is what always makes the most sense. And then this is for the other input. I don't really use that. This is my board. I really like the way my guitar and amp sound together, so I don't necessarily need to rely on pedals all the time for tone, but it's awesome, obviously, to have choices and options. So your standard Boss tuner, it's a tank. I've had it forever. It always works. And then this is the Cattle and Red Talisman. It's a plate reverb pedal. I love this pedal. It's the perfect reverb pedal for me. I love plate reverbs always. They just have a dark sound that I've always gravitated towards. And this also has this high pass filter, which is so handy for, you can get like a long decay reverb without just like swamping all of the sound. It's so useful. And I usually keep the reverb around here because there's a lot of finger picking and rhythmic articulation stuff. Time usually around here. This is pre-delay, which is cool, but I often turn it off. Yeah, this is the Memphis Sun, which is like supposed to be sort of an Elvis reference. It's Keeley. I like this pedal a lot. I only use it really for one thing. It does a lot of things. You can do a slap and plenty of other cool tricks, different reverbs, but I just use it for this sort of fake ADT sound where it's like a tape delay where the tape gets slightly off with itself, so you get this sort of warbly and this warbly sound that's really cool, and this does a cool imitation of that, so that's what I use that for. And then this is the Walrus Audio Julia, which I just got most recently. Really beautiful chorus and pitch vibrato pedal. I love pitch vibrato. The only amp I covet is a Magnatone because their built-in pitch vibrato is so beautiful. And this is like the closest I can get to that without that investment. Yeah, but I really love this pedal. I wasn't sure, there's a lot of bands using chorus now, but once I got it, I was just like, yes, this is the sound. And you can really subtly have it in the mix, or you can crank it and have it sound like you're underwater. And then this is the Crowther Audio Prunes and Custard, which is famously the pedal that Jeff Tweedy used on A Ghost Is Born to play all those crazy solos. And being a Wilco nerd, that's why I bought it. But what's really cool about this pedal is that with just like leaving the settings the way they are, all basically around the middle, you can really control how much it breaks up the sound based on how many notes you're playing and also how just your touch. So for me, I don't like to be constantly hammering on my pedals during the set because I'm also singing and playing complicated guitar parts. So I love this because I can turn it on, leave it a little minimal, and then I can just dig in and make sure I get the distortion without constantly having to toggle the pedal. And yeah, I use Hosa cables because they are very kind and sponsored us. And also, after we got broken into in Cleveland last year, they mailed us a bunch of free cables. So they're wonderful people. We really appreciate their support. You can find Wildermaker at wildermaker.bandcamp.com. We just put a new single out called Love So Well. Check it out.